Mission. Today is Thursday, November 8th, 2018. It is 6 p.m. and we're going to do roll call.
Chris Karn.
Sandra Steele.
Kirk Wilkins.
Brian Chapman.
Troy Cunningham.
Bryce Anderson.
And
Nicolette Pike.
Gordon Miner.
This thing's more trouble. And we have a quorum. All right, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have asked Nicolette Fike if she would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a public meeting, and we have set aside some time at the beginning of the meeting for items that are not for public comment and that are not on the agenda. So if anybody has some comments that are not on the agenda, we invite you to come forward, keep your comments brief to about 3 minutes, and state your name and address for the record. Okay, given that there isn't any public comment, we'll close public comment at this time. Let's move right into business item number 4. This is a public hearing. City Campus Community Plan and Village Plan located at 400 South and Saratoga Road, and this is city initiated. We're going to turn the time over to David Stroud for the presentation.
Do you have Austin Building as the item number 4?
I am sorry, that is correct. We're not going to change the order. We're going to go to item number 4, and I read it incorrectly. This is a business item. It's the site plan and conditional use for Austin Office Building located at 18 West Sargent Court. Dr. Todd Austin is the applicant, and we'll turn the time over to Ryan Harris for the presentation.
Okay, so this is for the Austin office building. We're looking at the site plan and conditional use today. So just a quick reference, site plan is the Planning Commission is the land use authority, and then with the conditional use, Planning Commission will be sending a recommendation to the City Council. So it is located in the mixed use zone. It does have a PUD overlay. It's 0.39 acres. And the plan is to have a physical therapy in the upstairs and then some office space in the downstairs in the basement. And it's a physical therapy office is a conditional use in the mixed use zone. Oh, okay.
Okay, no, try it.
Yeah, okay. We're good. So here's the site plan. So the building size is just under 4,000 square feet. There'll be 2,200 square feet upstairs for the physical therapy office, and then 1,750 square feet in the basement for the office space. So they are required to have 18 parking stalls, and they do have 18 parking stalls that are proposed. And due to the physical therapy office, they're required to have 4 accessible spaces, and they do have those, and 2 of those are van accessible. And then with connectivity to other sites, they do have 2 sidewalks that are connected to the Redwood Trail, Redwood Road Trail, and then the bottom sidewalk does go to the corner there with an ADA ramp, and as the other sites around the area develop, it'll be interconnected. And then just for reference also, with the setbacks, they are proposing that will be going to the City Council next month, a plat amendment. They plan on taking or doing a transfer of land, taking a portion of that park strip from the city and in exchange for maintaining the entire park strip. And so that is a condition of approval on the site plan and conditional use plan that the plat amendment be approved and recorded before they can get a building permit. And once they get that, then it will meet all the setbacks. And so here's the landscape plan. They're required to have 20%, and they have 24% of landscaping. The one good thing, one of the good things that they have is most of their plants are drought tolerant species. And then they do have 5 trees, and that's what's required. They're required to have 2 evergreens. They have those also, and they meet the requirement for the shrubs. And then they also meet the requirement, they have to screen the parking lot from Redwood Road, and so they have bushes along there, and I looked up the bushes they're proposing. They meet the requirement. They're over 3 feet, and so that's the requirement in the code, so they do meet that. With the elevations, they meet all of the city requirements. So this is the north and south elevations. And also just for reference, so in the concept plan that you guys saw last year, they had more of a modern style. And when it went to city council, the city council asked them to make it similar to the other buildings around there. And so what they're showing here is similar to the building to the north. They're going to be using the same materials, same colors to the building to the north. This is the east and west elevation. So the east elevation's along Redwood Road. We did want to bring up one item. If you see the windows on the east elevation, they aren't similar. They're a little bit different. So staff is recommending that you do as a condition of approval that those windows are matching. And also within the mixed use zone, they're required to have 50% of the facade be windows, and they also meet that requirement. And these are the signs they're proposing. They meet all of the sign ordinances for size. The south sign there will be on the south side of the building. It can only be 8% of the facade. They meet that requirement. And then the north sign can only be 50%, or it has to be less than 50% of the primary sign, and it meets that qualification too. And so with the recommendation for the site plan approval, staff recommends approval with the findings and conditions in the staff report and any other conditions that you guys have. The alternative motions are continuance and denial. And then with the conditional use, staff recommends that you forward a positive recommendation to the city council. And the alternatives is a continuance or forwarding a negative recommendation. And that's the report.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. And I see that the applicant is here. Would you like to state your name and address for the record, please?
I'm actually the applicant's son, or father. It's my son that's got the physical therapy, and this will be his building. But he had a conflict tonight. He's in Boston.
And what's your name, sir?
I'm Vaughn Austin, his father. And so, and then not only that, he's asked me to really help him with it, so I've been doing a lot of it. And I served on the Linden City Planning Commission for a number of years, and then also did some real estate for a number of years. And so he says, Dad, I don't have time. Will you help me with this? This has been kind of a challenge because of the size of the lot. And so when we made our offer, we didn't realize the complications that were involved with this particular piece of property. So we started back in April of 2017. And we've been to the city council already to ask them about this piece of property because that made it usable if we could do that. And they said they would like to do that. So we said, okay, we'll proceed. And then there were some other issues that came up that were kind of complicated things. So it's taken us a long time to get to this point. A little bit about Todd, my son, who's the physical therapist. He's been working in Saratoga Springs in the building that we're matching. He works in that building as it's his own business, and he's been working there for 10 years. And he rents from Garn McMullen. He thinks it's time he gets his own building because he's now about 50, and he says, I've got to get some things going for retirement. And so he says it's only wise that I get in my own building. So this is why he's doing this, is trying to move just through the parking lot to this building if we can get it built. I don't know if there's anything else questions you have. We want it to look nice. We've tried to work with the staff, everything they've asked. I don't believe we've been hard-nosed, have we?
No.
If they needed it changed, we've changed it, and we've done whatever we needed to do, and we worked with Gordon on some of the other issues over there in engineering, and he's been very helpful. So we want to compliment your staff. It's been, even though it's taken us a long time, they have been so helpful, and we are so appreciative of how they've worked with us and helped us to make it nice.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Okay, so this is a business item. So we'll turn it over to the Planning Commission for comments and questions. Go ahead and push your mic button if you wanted to speak. We have this new system.
Okay. You are not planning to have a monument sign?
There is a sign there on the property with Garnet Mullen. Can you hear me? Where he's working right now, they have a sign already where he's working, you know, and it's already established and was approved, I guess, when Garnet Mullen did his. And so Garnet said, that's fine, you can go ahead and keep your sign there, because it's right there, they're together, you know, the buildings. So it'll just stay there, that's there.
I can't require this, but I noticed there's a phone number on the building. Probably to have your address on the building would be helpful, more appropriate. And so that's just a suggestion. The next thing is your accessible parking. The law says that it has to be as close to the front door as possible, and yours isn't. And if you can get at least, you know, move them together will be a better solution. Now, I know that you have when you go to the access aisle, then you go up. That, in this case, probably isn't going to work unless you chopped off the front of your building a little bit. But there are two other solutions I have seen recently. And IHC, Saratoga Springs, on Crossroads.
Yes.
They have built up the pavement so that when you drive up a little incline and then the pavement is flat, and then you can go right in the door. The other one is in the American Fork, and they just made everything level. But the way yours is, you really don't meet the ADA.
I talked to the engineer that we have the engineer that works on it is the same one that worked on this whole project and did the land in the beginning. And so I think we can move those closer, he said, if that's really important. He said that the reason they did it the way they did is because it does make when they come out of the vehicle, it makes it level and nice. And then he says it also makes it better when they get onto the sidewalk. But he says if that's really important to the commission, he says, I think we can adjust that. He says, I think as I look back on it, that can happen. So
it's not. Yes, it's important to me, but it is federal law, and I've got the brief here if you wanted to take a look at it. But
okay.
It doesn't say you can. It says you must.
Okay. Well, I'll take that back to him. He indicated that it was acceptable the way he had it, but we can change it, he said.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, before we go on any further, in the presentation, there was a reference to a potential condition that the windows match. We would like to know, since this is an administrative decision, did you have any code reference that said that they had to have matching window lines? Because we require that of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think the applicant's already addressed that. They know they need to fix that. I don't even really know if it would be a condition or not, because they've already addressed it in their revised elevation. You just didn't have it.
I think our architect, because we originally didn't have the windows that big.
Okay.
And our architect made a mistake and didn't move that one up.
Okay, so you're okay with it?
Yeah,
and
no
really
problem.
don't need to make it
No
a
problem.
condition? Okay. the only one I got. Okay. Any other comments from the planning commission on this one? No? Okay, so this is a business item, and I will entertain a motion.
I move forward a positive.
Wait,
You know, Mike.
looks like Karn had it, sorry.
I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Austin Office Building Conditional Use Permit, 18 West Sergeant Court Drive, with the findings and conditions in the staff reported dated November 1st, 2018, and with an additional condition that the disabled parking be moved to be as close as possible to the front door.
We have a motion, Commissioner Steele.
Second.
We have a second,
I have a
Commissioner
question.
Cunningham. We do have a question on the motion.
Are we making a motion to the city council, or are we the approving body here?
We're the approving body.
Your motion was to a positive recommendation to the city council.
Oh, okay. We need to make a conditional use.
Two motions.
Two motions, absolutely.
So site plan's the first one.
The site plan would be the first one, and that would be one.
So do we need to amend that motion then?
Yes, we would. We do have a motion on the table, and it's her motion, so. And it has been seconded. So,
Did I say conditional use? If I did, we can just move them.
Commissioner Steele, would you like to alter your motion?
I think I made the motion for the conditional use.
Yeah, she did, I believe.
Okay,
No, I don't need to.
That'll be the first of two motions you'll need. to
Okay.
make.
perfect. Any other questions on the motion?
Could you repeat the motion?
Okay. I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Austin Office Building Conditional Use Permit, 18 West Sergeant Court Drive, with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated November the 1st, 2018, with the additional condition that the disabled parking be moved to be closer to the front door.
We have a motion. Commissioner Steele. Do we have a second?
Second.
Wait a second, Commissioner Cunningham. I have a question on the motion. I did not hear you say that you would include the findings and conditions in the staff report. Would you like to add those?
I thought I did. Okay.
That's just not what
Yes.
I heard. I could be wrong.
Absolutely will. With the findings and conditions in the staff report dated November the 1st, 2018.
Amended.
I'll accept the amendment.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
We do.
I move to approve the Austin Office Building Site Plan located at 18 West Sergeant Court Drive with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated November 1st, 2018.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any question on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Now you're excused.
Thank you very
And
much.
Commissioner Steele also voted in the affirmative. Her microphone was not on.
Okay.
Thank you. He's going to manage the microphones, but, and I'm glad he's doing it. Let's move on to item number 5. Now, this is what we had read earlier. This is a public hearing, City Campus Community Plan and Village Plan located at 400 South and Saratoga Road, City initiated. We turn the time over to Dave Stroud.
Commissioners, this is a request to approve, or excuse me, recommend approval, we hope approval anyway, of the City Center Municipal Complex Community Plan and Village Plan. This, of course, has already been under construction. Patriot Park is there. Should be finishing up construction, ready for play next year. The first building phase is proposed to be the police building, as located in the plans here. As you can see on the map there, the entire community plan would be located where you see around that outline. We have the Patriot Park identified there as well, and the remainder piece to the east would then be where the future city complex will then go with the first building going in being the police station. The district area plan identifies several types of neighborhood places that could go here. We don't need to read the whole project here, but we've identified that the resort hospitality would probably be the best match for what the proposed uses are going to be here with the park, the city complex. Future plans the city has in that area as well, tied mostly to the resort hospitality place type. Within the DAP, different types of open spaces are identified. The open space you see identified here on the screen would then be the special use open space. With special use open space, it considers several things. Public buildings could be one of them. Community buildings, recreation facilities are identified. Basically, within the special use open space type, the entire project would then be by code considered open space. So the entire project you see here, the entire community plan would be deemed to be open space. So right now, the proposed community plan would cover just a little over 132 acres. Again, the special use open space designation would be applied. It includes the public buildings that we are proposing. The plan right now currently calls for a potential build out of 100,000 square feet. That may be a little high, obviously, but we're throwing that number out there. We do have to tie it to equivalent residential units in the formula. And so that would then equal 46 equivalent residential units, which is 2165 square feet per ERU within the DAP. The community plan identifies the guiding development standards. Again, these are your bulk area, your setbacks, your building height, that sort of thing. You see off to the right, off-street parking, signage, lighting, those will all comply with Title 19 when site plans do come in. The village plan then, of course, gets a little more detail. We're going to include the Patriot Park, the existing Patriot Park in Village Plan 1, as well as the future police building you see just to the right of Patriot Park. The elevations you see here are then contained in the plan. These are the proposed elevations you see here. Staff has been working on this along with the city council representatives and the architects to bring a plan that has been agreed upon. This would then be the elevations for the police building you see here. And again, signage, lighting, those will still comply with Title 19. Within the plan, we have certain plans we have to identify. They're the vehicular plan you see here. Access points, there actually should be another one highlighted. My mouse doesn't show up on that screen. There's another access there on 400 South, just below one of the ball fields there. That should be identified as well. The pedestrian plan, we identify where the pedestrian routes throughout the project. Within the red hash marks you see here. And of course, the recommendation of staff is to recommend approval to the City Council for the Saratoga Springs Municipal Complex Community Plan and Village Plan. With the findings and conditions, and of course there are the options of continuance or denial as well.
Thank you for your presentation. Did you want to add anything to this presentation?
Yeah, if I could, and I appreciate Dave and his presentation and bringing this forward. The acreage that you see kind of up there with the proposed layout, go back, yeah, that actually represents about 56, or that actually represents about 43 acres, give or take. If you include the library parcel, this is probably a little bit closer, on the high 30s. One of the challenges that we've got is we have an option to purchase some additional property that would take it to that full acreage. And so one of the things that we're going to do is make a slight change, probably at the city council level, giving us a little bit more flexibility from the seller. Just a little language change in that, but really it won't change the fact that it's our intent to buy all this acreage. This is really going to be kind of like a central park. When you incorporate this acreage with the inlet park acreage, we're really trying to get a critical mass of massive open space area and really make this a great focal point for the community. And so some of those boundaries and things might adjust a little bit, but we would look for your approval to head forward to the city council, and some of those are just some small language tweaks that we would anticipate prior to council's approval, but just some minor tweaks that we're going to be working with from the landowner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is a public hearing. So if you have come here to provide commentary for item number 5, we're going to open up public comment at this time. All right, since we don't have any, we will close for public comment for item number 5. We'll open it up to the Planning Commission for commentary.
So, Mark, the area that is Patriot Park today and the police station, the city does not own the property north within the community plan. Is that right?
That's correct. So if you see that kind of yellow line in
Right.
here, we
Yep.
own the yellow line south. The residual property kind of looks like Oklahoma.
Yep.
That's going to be the piece that we're looking to continue to acquire.
Intent to buy.
Yes, our intent to buy, and we do have a purchase agreement with the seller, and we're anxious to do that. However, it's a big chunk of cash.
Funding. Yeah.
And we're trying to get that money. And so we are very excited for it. We have a couple of years to exercise that option.
Okay.
They've been a great partner with us in letting us move forward to this point.
Is that total parcel at that point larger than Neptune Park?
Oh, yeah. Neptune
larger.
Park is, I want to say Neptune Park is something closer to 10 to 15 acres.
But if I remember right, the future of that was 11 soccer fields or something of that nature.
Yeah, so above the ball fields, we started off with, probably an additional quad for baseball. Because again, we have soccer fields, we have hundreds of acres of other types of field throughout the city, but these are the first ball fields that the city's installing.
Right.
And so we anticipate that we'll probably need something closer to about 10 ball fields at build out, 10 to 12 ball fields, so we'll expand. Immediately above that, we show in a concept plan probably another half dozen multi-purpose fields. People say soccer, we say multi-purpose because
Football,
it could
lacrosse,
be rugby,
yeah.
football, could be all kinds of different things. We look to maximize this space. We also have a longer-term plan. One of the things that our community is desperately needing is to tie back to our roots, which is why you'll see the Victorian architecture in the police building. The council would like to continue to draw on that architectural theme with the new city hall and the library that goes in there. And ultimately, we would anticipate some sort of recreation space. It could be a throwback to the hot springs. It could be a recreation facility. It could be a lot of different things. That's a lot of acreage. Just to kind of keep this in context, the entire Lehigh City Hall complex is about 12 acres. And so like the Legacy Center and all of that is about 12 acres. And so, I mean, when you kind of put that in scope, this is several times that size.
So really future home of splash days and things like that.
It's going to become that central park. And I can't emphasize enough our desire to try and preserve that open space today so that as we continue to grow and as we continue to build, we have a footprint that we can continue to grow and adapt and develop. I mean, obviously, we want to get trees going now so that, 40 years from now, we've got, an amazing, tree-filled park and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Other comments? Commissioner Steele.
I just wanted to comment that last night, the park lights went on, and it's really a striking facility.
Thank you.
In a good way?
Yes.
Neptune Park is just under 11 acres. I just looked that up.
I like the...
This is going to be, when you throw in all of the
Oklahoma.
you throw in Oklahoma and you throw in Inlet Park, it'll be over 150.
Wow.
It was a good word choice on striking for a ball field.
For ball.
Any other comments from the Planning Commission? None? Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of the city Saratoga Springs. Let me start that over. I move to recommend approval of the Saratoga Springs City Center campus plan, village plan with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have a question on the motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Steele?
Thank you. Is this really, we're not approving this, we're recommending a positive recommendation to City Council. aren't we? This is not final with us.
This is the way it's written in the staff report, Dave. Can you see that she read it right off of the staff report?
Okay, what I'm looking at, I thought I copied off my staff, but yeah, you're making a recommendation of, the motion was approval. That is your motion tonight.
To the city council.
To the city council.
Okay. Would you like to amend
I'll
your
amend
motion?
it, yeah. So I move to recommend approval to the city council of the Saratoga Springs City Center Campus Community Plan, Village Plan with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Thank you. And the second?
Good.
You're okay with it? Any other questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to enter our work session. This is item number 6, Beacon Pointe Community Plan, located approximately Parkway Boulevard and Redwood Road. Suburban Land Reserve is the applicant, and we'll turn the time over to our planning director, David Stroud, for the presentation.
Figuring out the microphone here. Okay. Yeah, tonight, this is a work session item. The applicant returned red lines back to us, but it was not in time for this meeting to make this a public hearing. And so to help move this project along, we thought we'd do this as a work session, have some discussion back and forth between the Planning Commission and the applicant, throw some ideas out, throw some discussion out. And then we have called a special Planning Commission meeting next Thursday. It has been now legally noticed. We did obviously meet the time frame for that. So we do have a special Planning Commission meeting next Thursday for this to be a recommendation then on to the City Council. So what I've done, I've got a slideshow prepared here. The applicant also has a slideshow as well. I suspect a lot of these things that I'll show, the applicant will also bring up as well. But I'll just go through what I have prepared, and then we can have the applicant, I'll pull up their presentation, we can have them run through theirs, and then open up for discussion if that will work. So Beacon Pointe right now, this is a proposed development, obviously outlined there you see in the blue on the part of the church ranch property, the church farm property. It's quite a large project, several hundred acres. Ultimately would be right now proposed at about 1,900 units. What we've identified would be the traditional neighborhood. I believe what you have in the plan right now does not identify neighborhood commercial. However, I've brought this up with the applicant. They are anticipating the potential to have some sort of neighborhood commercial. So we do also need to identify that place type in the plan to bring those requirements in there as well. The land use allocation, right now it's about 370 acres, a little more than that. And what you see here with the pie chart, you see in the gray, the residential uses would encompass about 300 acres. 1,900 units or so with a total gross density of approximately 5.13 units per acre. And then that pie shape is broken out then the division of the open space. You can see the different types of areas that then constitute what the open space would be. The special project areas, largest at 22 acres. The district area plan does identify that a special project area does qualify as open space. The Boulevard plan, which we'll show you here shortly, which is a new design proposed to be in the city, which then be encompassed in the community plan. And again, these other open space areas you see here and the acreages that they contain. Just to give you a breakdown, right now the plan would be several different villages. It is anticipated that they then come in as their own village plan. Could be a developer. It could be 8 different developers. We don't know. The applicant doesn't know at this time, but they would come in as different villages. And this just gives you the size breakdown, showing the density and then the open space and how many ERUs then are tied to each village plan. And here, this is the map then which would identify those various villages. And each of those has a name, is given some historical name to this area. The applicant can expand on those if you like. But again, it does identify those villages, identifies the special project area, the slip lane, the main Founders Boulevard you see coming up to that area. And the first village would be 1A and 1B, 1A being the red and 1B being the green you see on the map. The open space plan identified here, the areas of green could be city maintained open space, could be HOA owner maintained open space. Just to identify where these projects are. You know, Founders Boulevard, as you see there in the middle, this is a new concept. This obviously is not within our engineering specs, this type of road cross section, but this is a cross section the applicant did come up with. Basically has the main thoroughfare identified in the middle with a landscape median running down the middle. But then you also see these slip lanes off to the side separated by a landscape median. These would be then used to access the homes. If you go back here, the homes you see in the red along Founders Boulevard, those homes don't have direct access onto Founders. In a sense, they would go onto a frontage road system to access those units. And so this is a new concept here. A little more detail then of the slip lane itself would be basically a one-way slip lane, area for parking, area for cars to bypass any parked vehicles. And then, of course, access into just through a driveway into the units that line, that slip lane. Here are some of the requirements based on the villages, what the minimum sizes, what the average may be. There are different requirements for those units that are on the edge of the property. Those are what's identified as edge conditions. The community plan identifies different requirements for edge 1, edge 2, edge 3. Minimum lot size you see for 2-family or 3-family. And then the minimum square footage, if there anything at multifamily, which would be 4 units or greater, based on the community plan, what the minimum size would be, for instance, a single bedroom or 2 or more bedrooms. And then design guidelines, this just gives us the setbacks. We can go through these if you want, but just to identify what the setbacks are going to be, proposed to be within each of the, either the single family attached, or then the multifamily units. And at this time, there's no recommendation at this time. This is purely a work session just to discuss the proposal with the applicant.
Thank you for your presentation. Is the applicant here? Hi, would you like to come join us and tell us your names and addresses for the record?
Okay.
Yes, as long as I've got to pull up theirs here, so let me do that.
Well, hello there. Who would like to start?
I'll go ahead. I'm Haley Wall. I work for LOSI. Our client is Suburban Land Reserve, represented here by Thane Smith and Greg Magleby from LEI Engineering.
Haley and Greg, I got. Thane's been here many times. Okay, did you want to add something to the presentation?
Yes, so we have our own presentation.
Let's bring it up now. It's
Time is yours.
Unfortunately,
quite large.
it's a little bit larger because we have video. So.
Oh, could you also give us your address for the record?
Would that be a business address or personal address?
Business is fine.
We're located at 51 South Main, Suite 301 in Salt Lake City.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Let's test it out. Okay, very good. So first off, we just want to thank you, the Planning Commission, city staff, and our attendees for your time and attention today. What we're going to be presenting here is a little bit different than the community plans you have usually seen. From what I've seen, most of your community plans are submitted by builders or production developers where they already have a product in mind that they're designing their community and village plan to. Ours is going to be a little bit different, as David has mentioned, as we don't have builders and developers lined up already. Our goal was really to create a vision of what would be ideal and what we really think would make Saratoga and elevate the surrounding development, and work one-on-one with developers to sort of establish that village, tailoring them to our exact vision per village. Just to reiterate, and by way of introduction, my name is Haley Wall. I work for LOSI Landscape Architecture. We're a landscape architecture, land planning, and urban design firm located in the Avenues in Salt Lake City. And we've been involved in multiple master planning efforts throughout the years. Most notable around here is Daybreak. We've been involved since its inception and worked with clients such as the Redevelopment Agency of Salt Lake City to work with declining neighborhoods and try to reinvigorate neighborhoods. My colleague, Greg Magleby, I'm sure you're all familiar with, as he is quite a familiar face around here. He told me anecdotally yesterday that they've actually worked on, I think he said 17,000 lots within Saratoga Springs alone. So very familiar face here and excellent engineer. So to start off, you might wonder where we got the name Beacon Pointe from. So at the beginning of this whole process, in conversations with SLR, Councilman Bud Podesta shared his vision of what Saratoga Springs could be, and he said that he wanted it to be a beacon to the surrounding communities. And so when we heard this and we were discussing this, we thought that because this project is going to be a significant step in that direction, and we'd want to honor his service and his legacy. And so we decided to call it Beacon Pointe. And as David mentioned, we've taken the name of founders or local or regionally significant founders for the names of each of our villages as well. So we have 8 villages within our community, along with our primary street network that you see right here. So a transportation master plan was done by Fair and Piers that made sure that our street network was adequate and that we wouldn't be rerouting any traffic along existing neighborhoods and that we would have the capacity that we needed. Just as an FYI, the only signalization that's necessary at this time is at Parkway Boulevard and Redwood Road. And that has already been submitted to city staff to adjust the transportation master plan. You may be familiar with our site. As he mentioned, it's the old Church Farm site, so it's a greenfield development with no known environmental concerns, sensitive species, or migration corridors. And if you take a look at our diagram here, the dashed lines represent those edge conditions that David mentioned. So these are either adjacent to existing conditions or along prominent corridors where we want to take extra care to blend it into the community fabric and make sure that we have an attractive perimeter for the city. For example, here is our southern edge condition. This is adjacent to the Benches, Grandview, or Saratoga Hills subdivisions on the southern edge. And so here we have the intent on just mirroring that edge. So lot sizes, frontage widths, lot lines, fence lines, so that there's a nice seamless transition between our community and existing subdivisions. As you can see here from this table, our densities range from about 3.54 units per acre in Founders Boulevard to 12 units per acre in our multifamily village. But most of them fall somewhere in the middle, where we have a majority of single-family units balanced judiciously with selectively integrated attached units to mimic a traditional neighborhood. Suburban Land Reserve and the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints have worked together to locate the special project site and provide a focal point for this community. Now, while there may have been a lot of speculation, and perhaps some of our attendees have come tonight hoping for confirmation or more clarification, that's not within our purview. What's on the record is that it will be some sort of ecclesiastical use with extensive grounds for open space that will serve as the terminus for our central east-west corridor. As we mentioned, our goal is really to create a community that will be a beacon to the surrounding development. All our efforts were to create a livable community that allows for safety, security, comfort, convenience, enabling community association, and creating a sense of place that welcomes people to Saratoga Springs. As you may have seen in our previous diagrams and those shared by David, Beacon Pointe is organized around a main thoroughfare that acts as the backbone and centerpiece of the community. Founders Boulevard will have an unobstructed view from the special project site out towards Redwood Road and out east towards Utah Lake. It's reminiscent of historic residential boulevards such as the eastern portion of South Temple in Salt Lake City, Summit Avenue in Minneapolis, Pennsylvania Street in Denver. At first glance, it looks like a pretty typical boulevard, but it's been adapted to serve a variety of functions. So in addition to our north and south connections, it will serve as the east-west entrance to our community and sort of the central spine. As a residential boulevard, it's important to us that it actually functions for our residents. So as David mentioned, it allows us to buffer houses from the main flow of traffic and creates street parking and easy access for residents and guests. A hedge there in the median, as you see, screens the parking from the main view corridor and softens that divide. By separating the local and through traffic, it also provides additional safety for children playing out front and just for anyone using that trail in front. So those slip lanes actually curve around on the west end of Founders Boulevard. And so there we've created raised crossings that allow additional safety and deference to pedestrians on that end. So to enhance safety and avoid conflicts with parked cars, bicycle commuters also have a 5-foot lane on either side of the main travel lanes dedicated for their own personal use. For pedestrians, a double row of trees and planting create a nice, comfortable path along the length of the boulevard. That's 10 feet wide and buffered from through traffic. This promenade invites residents to get outside and provides a pleasant neutral ground for community interaction and recreation. At maturity, those canopies will provide valuable shade and a nice windbreak. Here's a little video of what that experience will really be like. We went to extra effort to work with Rick Kennington to choose tree species that would work well for your unique conditions and that would be low maintenance and attractive year-round. Yeah, I had a near miss there.
I guess everybody.
But so we too would like to have mature trees available to really recreate this at any time. So our plan is also to create a tree nursery in one of our city parks in the extra open space so that we can cultivate trees so that we'll have replacements available and ready whenever it's necessary. So what you see here is our open space diagram. This reflects the 18% minimum required open space, the representative size, and the general location of open space amenities. So each open space type was directly informed from the district area plan by its definition and parameters. The dashed trails you see there, the undefined community trails that are marked by the T's there, 2 church sites, which are also allowed as open space in the district area plan, have been excluded from that 18%, so those are not included, so we expect we'll have much more. Additional village-specific open space will also be provided at the developer's discretion to create village-specific amenities. So here you can see the breakdown of some of the open space village by village and by type. So as you may notice, some of those villages do not have dedicated open space. However, we anticipate that additional village amenities will be provided and outlined at the village plan level. As you can see, the city park is a large portion of our open space, and we are working to develop programming that will benefit not only Beacon Point residents, but Saratoga Springs residents. And here are just a few precedents and examples of amenities that could be incorporated into that open space network. So traditionally, desirable neighborhoods have developed organically over time, providing a rich palette of architectural styles and diversity. Likewise, instead of limiting our overall community to one particular style or theme, we've made a conscious decision to encourage our community to embrace a variety of complementary architectural styles that will be curated by our architectural review committee. However, in order to create a cohesive community brand, we have chosen site furnishings for our public open space that will be consistent throughout the community. Some examples are benches, drinking fountains, trash cans, park grills, signage, and lighting. But in addition to that, we will also have village-specific branding elements that will reflect the style and theme of the individual villages, such as pavilions, restrooms, picnic tables. And these elements will work to reinforce a sense of identity and place for each village. So I hope you see from this small portion that we've shared of our rather large community plan that we've really put a lot of time and attention to these details, and this represents a significant investment for Saratoga Springs. We're hoping that this will be a great amenity for the residents and for the community at large. And we're now happy to answer any of your questions and open the discussion.
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you to the city staff as well for all their preparation on this. This is a public hearing, and I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It is a work session, so we're going to turn this over to the Planning Commission for comments.
Okay. So I have some questions. And it could be in here, I missed it. At what point does a broader master transportation plan get developed for this property? So right now, the only access point is Parkway and Redwood, from what I see, except for Foothill Boulevard on the west. Are there other access points for these 1,200 homes or more?
Gordon, would you?
So I can speak to that. In response to this community plan that was submitted, the city initiated an update to the transportation master plan in this specific area and to the north, and that'll be coming to the Planning Commission mid-December.
Okay. And I think you addressed one of my questions. I'm concerned with the continuity of the overall community plan having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 HOAs. Are you having one architectural control committee govern the whole community without having a master HOA? How are you mandating or dictating to each village their design and what they can do and what they can't do?
So the Architectural Review Committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, will be the governing body until that village is completely developed, and then they'll turn it over to the HOA,
right?
CCNRs.
So you'll have one architectural control committee essentially that is governing all of them, kind of like a master HOA would.
More like a master developer would.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's typically how developments of this size work, is there's a master developer who controls the architecture throughout. At some point, it gets turned over to an HOA generally.
Sure.
So.
Okay. So your conditions with your developers, you'll have conditions with your developers what they can and can't do then, as far as house size, architecture, colors, etc. I know this question's been asked, but I want to ask it on the public record. Is 1A a separate HOA in front of Eastman Springs, Wilson Knoll, Parley Orchard? Is Founders Boulevard, the homes on Founders Boulevard that wrap up around the special project, is that considered one village? That's one village.
It's one village. We're not mandating that an HOA be in place here.
Okay.
One of the points in the community plan, if you read in there, there's a special assessment area or a special improvement district proposed. Okay. And we've had discussions on that with city staff and city council members about the special assessment area being implemented so that the city can maintain and have funding to maintain those.
Okay, so that was my question. So that special assessment area can act as a taxing agent to pay for all this landscaping up and down Founders Boulevard.
It would be an alternative to a master association.
Right. I was just trying to see how we get around that.
Topic. As a city, part of their request is that we maintain that, and so we're working with them on setting up that special assessment area. We anticipate we'll probably contract that out. We may maintain it for the first few years or something like that, or we may contract it out, and we've had those kinds of discussions as far as, you know, the special assessment area, you know, fully covering those costs from a cost recovery standpoint.
Okay, so do you mean like a professional,
Yeah.
commercial landscaper?
Yeah, we've contemplated that. I mean, we've currently, you know, kind of anticipated, you know, trying it out in-house and seeing what it's going to look like. I think as some of the other park space comes online that would also be city maintained, it might make more sense for us, but we certainly have the option to go with a commercial landscaper as well.
Okay, so the city park north of Eastman Springs, that's where you're talking about your tree farm?
Mm-hmm.
As part of that park?
Yeah, just integrating that into the fabric of the park.
Okay.
And in order for those trees to be maturing at the same age, it's anticipated that they'll probably in their first phase begin growing some trees out there so that they're growing at the same rate for replacement trees and things of that nature.
Okay. And then do you have what is your long-term vision for, I mean, are you going to, when you start working with developers, are you going to work Redwood Road in or Foothill Boulevard back to Redwood? How do you see that happening?
I mean, I can address that. So as Haley mentioned earlier, we're not builders, and we don't develop house plans. We don't develop architectural styles. We have suggested and guidelines, and we have guiding principles in this community plan that you can go through and review. But what will happen likely is we will go out as a master developer to an RFP process and invite different builders locally, and we've got several national builders here in the state, and have them propose their plans within each of these villages. And then at that point, we would be able to help them with the architecture and vision that we have with theirs and combine it to something that's cohesive.
So part of the master development, though, is, Mark, maybe you can answer, how much of Foothill goes in on this project, or any of it?
Well, and that's certainly one of those things. So for us as a city, as whether it's Beacon Point or whether it's Rushton or whether it's any of these applicants along the Foothill Boulevard alignment, one of the things that we will be working with them on is for them to build basically the local roads on that edge condition. So that will become the first phase. And then ultimately, we're working to try and preserve the full right-of-way, which I think is something that's in about 450 feet of right-of-way for that Foothill Boulevard alignment. So we would anticipate as those village plans come in, we would be working with them on those edge roads and working with them to try and start building the first frontage roads or the local roads that will start to create that north-south corridor along there. Unfortunately, until we get Rushton piece in, it doesn't help a ton.
Right.
But we're certainly, you know, all of those roads that connect up along the existing development, we're working with Rushton, you know, the applicant to the south to try and help kind of make that connection point. The other big gap is basically Benches south to Jacobs Ranch, another critical link that we're working on. So as a city, we're desperately trying to work with the appropriate property owners along there to make that work. And you know, to be quite frank with you, your question is excellent. And as those village plans come in, we will be working to try and get that connectivity starting to get built. The problem that we have, and that's why that northern road along that northern edge, and they've done some unique things to try and give us a little bit of flexibility to try and work on that edge condition, but that roadway that goes along there will tie into that master plan that Gordon was talking about. So hopefully we can get that Foothill Boulevard alignment and continue as we move north, connecting all those roadways.
Do we have the final MAG report?
We do. In fact, we do have it as a layer in our GIS, and this roadway immediately on the western edge of this application is where that Mountain View corridor would align.
Okay.
And the alignment from that report is incorporated in the Transportation Master Plan that you'll be seeing in December.
Okay. So, I mean, I love the plan. I think it's going to be a great asset to the city. My biggest concern is that we start developing, my eyes are shot, Bridger Field with higher density housing, Cutler Valley, Parley's Orchard, and all that traffic pouring onto Redwood Road, a road that's already congested and has issues, and not necessarily starting at the other end and developing roads out there. So,
you know, that's really an economics question, and oftentimes we work with developers, and I don't want to speak for the applicant, but the most expensive property for them to start building houses on would be the furthest one back. And it would put the greatest demands on Founders Boulevard, because you're starting in the very back. Typically, we see the development start where the infrastructure is and then build its way back. This is unique in that some of the backbone infrastructure is going in right up front, but typically you're going to see that infrastructure get built, and then you're adding to it, and you're slowly migrating with that infrastructure. Very expensive to pull it the whole way, master plan it, build it all, and then
yeah, well, we're looking at 1A
backwards.
and 1B in the coming week, right? And that puts all of Founders Boulevard in.
It does. It does. But to service this, we're also talking about tanks and ponds and other things that are going to be necessary at certain stages from a service standpoint. So there's lots that's going into it. Gordon and Greg have done a great job of planning the master utilities for this. And, you know, I'm speaking broadly, not specifically to all the elements of this, but those are the things that you need to recognize that they've considered as far as how this might work economically.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, and one of the unique things to remember, each of these villages can stand alone, or multiple villages could be built at the same time. So you may be getting different flavors and builders in different villages, not just one village, one product at a time. So the master infrastructure is in here so that all of them can proceed.
That being said, our intent at this time is to develop that Founders Boulevard Village at once with custom or semi-custom homes. So we expect that all to come in.
You'll go out to a developer on 1A, right?
Or multiple.
Multiple, okay.
Like, is it custom, semi-custom homes?
Okay, okay.
So as a master developer, our intention currently is to construct that ourselves. We would construct Founders Boulevard. That's our intention.
Right.
And then from there, we would contact multiple builders. We haven't decided yet whether it's going to be one builder or that has capacity of building different types of homes here, or multiple builders. We're leaning towards multiple builders at this point.
So the homes along Founders would be more of a less D.R. Horton, Ivory, but they could be custom homes, et cetera. But you could have.
We try not to use names, but.
Yeah, not to throw out developer A and developer B could be developing two different villages at the exact same time.
Yes, but this should be the showpiece.
And because you're putting all the Founders in, I guess they could do the back end and the front end at the same time.
Exactly.
Whichever property they want.
Yeah, one thing that I think is kind of unique, and with this property that SLR's been working on over the last few years, we've seen now two very large builders come in and do different projects, and there's a massive planning effort that goes along with it. In this case, SLR has kind of come forward to kind of get the framework of the community plan in place. Then they're going to piece it out, whereas in some of the other legacy farms or the Promenade, we're seeing, you know, kind of a different pattern, and we're working with them through that whole process. So this is unique, and I think it will be interesting, and from a staff perspective, it'll be very interesting for us to see how this works, because this could be a different model going forward on the rest of their property.
It's going to be interesting to watch road connectivity happen with 6 different developers, I think.
But it's a good thing we got a master builder who's going to make sure it's going to happen.
Commissioner Cunningham, you had a question?
Yeah, my question is for Gordon on the slip roads and the Founders Boulevard. Is there any safety concerns we need to be concerned with that, or what are we going to need to do as a city to?
So that's primarily a question for Chief Campbell. He's been heavily involved in that. But yes, it's a safety concern. He needs to be able to pass his emergency vehicles through there. and he's involved in that.
And as we did that planning, we made the bike lanes, like for example on Founders Boulevard, we gave ourselves enough width that Chief Campbell bought off on the pavement cross sections, both on the slip lanes and in this. And, you know, just kind of a history for all of you. I don't know that any of you were on the Planning Commission, maybe Commissioner Wilkinson was there. Wilkins, sorry. We had this concept approved for slip lanes in the other Beacon Point, spelled differently, on the south end of the city, south of Lake Mountain, years ago. We actually, we approved a similar concept. It was private drives as opposed to public streets, which is the difference here. But we've already actually approved this concept, and that was probably, I want to say 5-7 years ago, something like that. Sandra was there.
You also mentioned about neighborhood commercial, but you don't know at this time where you might put that in?
No, we really intended that to be on a case-by-case basis as it fits in, so that all of that will be at the village plan level. When we find an appropriate use and an appropriate commercial entity, we'll be doing that on a village-by-village level.
Okay. My only other concern is of course, the high density. When that goes in, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of public comment. So if we could do more neighborhood commercial in that area, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
On that point, and I think that's a very legitimate concern, we have to remember that these rights were vested long before Prop 6 came along. And so absolutely, I'm sure that will be part of the conversation, but I do want to make sure that we represent, you know, on behalf of the applicant, those rights were vested, I think back in about 2009, 2010.
Something like 30,000 homes from the southern portion of this property up to the crossroads.
It's actually 16,000 total. You do the math, we've taken out about 1,000 with legacy farms. We've got about another 2,100, 2,200, something in there going along with Jordan Promenade. And so, you know, we're starting to see those numbers get eaten down, and then obviously this application would be a continuation of that. And again, the overall plan that was approved back in '09 anticipated in the district area plan the densification as you got closer to the city center.
Commissioner Steele. Commissioner Steele.
Well, I have quite a few comments. On page 15, I am concerned about your open space and some of the things that are being used are counted as open space. The special project site, since we don't know what it is, I mean, it could be a baseball field, it could be a swimming pool, aquatic center by what is in the DAP. And so I'm a little concerned about that the whole area being counted as open space, the entire 22.8 acres. Village 1B, I guess, would be that. And you've asked for special lighting for that, but not knowing what is going in there, don't know why we need to have the special lighting. Just a comment. Is the asphalt area of Founders Boulevard being counted in your 13.6 acres of open space? Is that that's going to be a public road, right? I got a problem with that.
It's actually, if you read the district area plan, it's allowed for boulevards to be counted in full, just as it is for meeting houses. And we're not counting, as earlier mentioned, there are 2 meeting houses in here that we're not counting as open space. So the open space we're providing or proposing is actually within the rights of the district area plan.
Well, that's kind of, I've looked at it and it's kind of open for interpretation. I still have a problem with you counting what is already a public road for your recreation. Now, if you were going to maintain that parkway, then yes, I would agree with you. but you're not. That's public street, and so you're kind of crossing a line there as far as I'm concerned. Let's see. Actually, and we have, I guess to explain to the people that are here, we're trying to meld our Chapter 19.26, which is our planned community, along with the DAP, and then try to cross-reference it, what governs what. It looks to me like you're counting Founders Boulevard twice as open space. You're counting it, let me go to, let's see, page 16. You're counting Founders Boulevard at 13.6 acres. And you have that called out. And then you have Bridger Field, specific open space. Due to the high intensity range associated with this village, a minimum of open space requirement of 4 acres will be required, inclusive of the landscaped areas along Redwood Road and Founders Boulevard. Now you're already counting it in your parkway, what you say that is available.
Yes, so let me address your comment. So there is a portion of the roadway being built currently that is associated with the junior high school. And that will have some open space that we're providing along it. It's currently called Parkway on the plat. We're working with the city council, and they're aware of this, to make sure that name is Founders Boulevard from Redwood Road west. That's the portion of Redwood Road, or that's the portion of Founders Boulevard adjacent to Bridger Field that would be inclusive of the open space that we're talking about. We're not talking about the open space from that west edge of Bridger Field to the west up towards the special use project.
If you look at the monitor, it's the area in red there, whereas the Founders Boulevard calculation is the area in green. So that corner piece with the square.
Well, I guess I'll just say that I don't think that a public street should be counted as open space for a project, any project. I don't know that we have ever done that before, and I would hope we'd never be asked to again.
Maybe we can ask staff. I mean, this is a working session, so we can ask staff to review the open spaces, and before we meet next week, you can have a meeting of the minds.
Yeah. So just as a private citizen, I'd just like to comment that, so the district area plan identifies many different sort of amenities that are not necessarily for active recreation. So for example, when we were thinking about this, if we put a lake in the middle of our 14.8 acre city park, you couldn't use that for active recreation unless it was boating and that sort of thing, but it's still a community amenity because it elevates the area and really provides aesthetic amenity. So just my 2 cents there.
And it just seems like that the Bridger Field really needs more open space since it's a denser area of your project. And so I would...
If you look at that, there's a 4.5 acre projected open space area for Bridger Field specifically. It's that red rectangle in the middle of it.
Yeah, but that in your verbiage says that includes the landscape areas along Redwood Road and Founders Boulevard. So they're really not getting real open space, real green space that people who are in high-density projects really want and need. And so I'll let that one go.
This rectangular area is just representative of kind of the area, the space, as this is brought in and we see how the developer would like to plan this, you'll likely see the open space integrated into, like you were saying, as residents like to see it among the housing units, to where it feels and it lives better than seeing a 4.5 acre rectangle in the middle of this project.
And we can break this open space out. I mean, it does say Bridger, Bridger Field, and gives an open space, but we can break out what the frontages are versus what would be an interior use for that particular development.
Commissioner Steele, Commissioner Chapman had a question about the same open space matter. If we just deal with that now.
Okay.
Okay.
That's really my only question, so I thought I'd just piggyback. I also found it quite puzzling that public road asphalt was being considered part of open space. And so, I mean, you mentioned a lake being in a non-functional amenity, and while asphalt is functional, it's hardly an amenity, I think, as we traditionally have viewed open space. And so, the only remaining feedback I had was, I guess, more direction for staff. I mean, it's a work session, so we have never, in the 2 years I've been here, considered a road. Mr. Stroud.
Yeah, when that came up from Commissioner Steele, I looked at in the district area plan. I'll read it to you. The district area plan identifies various types of open space.
Okay, please.
One of those is Parkway, Boulevard. It says urban streets that provide comfortable and safe pedestrian and cyclist connections may include landscape center median, large shade trees, on or off-street bikeway, on or off-street bikeways, and seating. So in the district area plan, a boulevard like that with those amenities is counted towards open space.
Well, if that's the definition in the district area plan, I'm corrected. I'm glad you have a bike lane in there. I think that helps. I think that saves it. Thank you, Commissioner Steele.
This is unique. You mentioned you've never approved this in the city before. This cross-section is 147 feet wide. You've never approved such a cross-section for a city road like this with 3 medians in it and 10-foot park lanes or pedestrian walkways on both sides and bike lanes. This is unique. This is what the original Boulevard and Parkway district area plan definition intended.
Yield. Okay, Commissioner Steele, you can continue.
Of course. Now, if we go by our chapter 19.26, it says definitely that you can't count. It shall not include parking areas, streets, or sidewalks. So we've got a disparity in our planned community and our DAP. And I have a funny feeling the DAP was written first and then the planned community came second. But
Again,
they don't mesh.
But if you recall, the DAP was the prevailing document that was adopted with their annexation, I believe. And we can have Kevin clarify that at a future time. But the DAP becomes the governing body if there's a conflict.
Right, okay. I wondered which one would.
Well, we'll just instruct staff to speak with Kevin and make sure that we've got on the same page as far as open space.
Yeah, the community plan and village plan language, and I apologize for cutting short, I just want to clarify this. It was modified, so when the original DAP came in, there was a little bit of language that was there, and it was a little bit more general, and then we've tightened that up over time. But this document would be grandfathered in because it predates some of those changes that may be causing some of those conflicts.
Okay.
And we'll get legal to answer that at the appropriate time.
Nothing has been said about the urban or the wildland urban interface. And I believe until the Foothill Boulevard goes in, that the western portion and I don't know about the northern, if that's in the within that area. But are you aware of the special conditions that you have to meet for that? And are you planning to do that with the single family homes?
I'm aware of the requirements, and we'll have to look and see how that applies on this particular
Okay, because it's not the usual backyard. You can't have structures within so many feet and.
So right along Rushton, and that's really kind of the piece that the top part of the bench is out to that outer edge. That's really the most likely area. The rest of this as ag land, it's something we'll definitely need to look at, but that Rushton piece is probably the greatest at risk at this point.
Okay. Are you using any detention basins for open space? Mm-hmm. Are you counting them at 100%?
Yes.
I'd like staff to check with Kevin Thurman, because we normally will not allow more than 50% of a detention basin to be used as park space. And I looked in the DAP and I could not see anything that talked about detention basins. So I think this may be one of the areas where our city code will be the ruling document. Unisex bathrooms, restrooms. Are you planning, it says, you show one that, or you show examples that have 2 restrooms. Mm-hmm. Now, when you say that you will only have one facility unisex, will you have 2 of them in one building or just one unisex?
So that's really a question for a village plan applicant.
Okay.
Right now, we're showing that we'd like to see unisex bathrooms there. We would like to see bathrooms, but that's going to be determined by whoever it is in conjunction with city staff and as to what actually happens there.
Okay. Well, then my comments on those can be postponed till a later date. You mentioned pavers on trails, and I'm always concerned about pavers with the disability ADA. And so I would, sometimes they can be properly laid and they're just fine. They're easy to navigate. If done improperly, they are a nightmare. And you have textured concrete in pedestrian crossings. I would hope that you take that out and say colored concrete, because rarely have I seen textured concrete meet ADA. And just a comment, I noticed that you have shown detached garages, and so that again will come with a village plan. I don't know that that's real practical in our heat and our snow. You're using, I'll just ask this because I've read through it, and I hope this is what you meant in your edge uses, that you will be using four-sided architecture if a building backs up to or a residence backs up to a road. Mm-hmm. Is that what, okay.
Yeah, along those red lines that were the edge conditions, that's where that provision is. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I looked at your setbacks along the southern boundary line, which is the southern boundary line of the church-owned property. And it looks like, what are your setbacks? What are you calling out for your setbacks for that? Because that is in this.
It's 20 feet is the setback along those.
Okay. Have you then given another 20 feet?
Along a portion of this, there is an easement that exists between the meeting house that's further west down to Redwood Road. That's going to have to be dealt with at the village plan level. How that extra 20 feet, because of that easement there, that for that storm sewer line that runs down there, So right now, that's to be determined at a village plan level of how to deal with that extra 20 feet.
Okay, I didn't see anything in the district area plan that would clarify this, but our chapter 19.26.065A says no structure, excluding signs and entry features, may be closer than 20 feet to the peripheral property line of the planned community district boundaries. The area within this 20-foot area is to be used as a buffer strip and may be counted towards open space, but shall not include required backyards or building setback areas. I don't know if you had followed that or not.
Well, in the beginning of this document, we're not subject to Title 19 because of this district area plan and the code that we're writing as we write this. This code becomes, this document, the community plan becomes the code that governs this particular area. And so that's what we're working with. We're not providing an additional 20 feet of buffer in that area. We've got 20-foot setbacks. They're going to be backyards to backyards. The existing residents there have setbacks, and we'll have similar sized lots with 20-foot setbacks.
Well, now the way I understood it, if it's not specifically called out in your district area plan, then chapter 19 does kick in. And I haven't seen anything in the district area plan that talks about that. So it seems like that we would then defer to our code. And again, would you check with Kevin on that, please?
I will do that. And just to follow up as a comment on that, again, that's the nature of a community plan, though. The district area plan doesn't identify any zoning requirements other than density and open space types. So the community plan itself is the document, or the village plan, to say, okay, what zoning requirements are we going to have that are unique to this project that aren't addressed anywhere else? And to Thane's point, they do state that in the community plan here, is that Title 19 is not to be used unless the community plan or village plan does not address any development standard.
Okay. On this one, we have run across this once before, and we did require, with the DAP in place, we did require a buffer. So that's what. And there was a community plan in place too, but we still required it.
Let's just ask David, could you put that on your list as well? You just review that. Thank you.
And on the corner lots, it says that you will have 11 feet to the foundation on the side yards. And I'll ask staff this, is that going to be adequate to provide a clear sight triangle? You might want to look into that before.
Turn on. There we go. The side triangle is going to take precedence over any setback. We cannot violate that side triangle. If the 11-foot doesn't work, then when the plan comes in for a house, if it's within the clear vision, then they've got to move that home.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. And then you have that the SAA will come into play after 75% of the project is platted. I'm a little concerned about that because several things could happen where the city could get left with a problem, because platting doesn't mean building and it doesn't mean occupancy. And so I'm concerned about that particular, how that is written. I would feel more comfortable if it was 75% occupied, and then you've got people paying into it. If it's just platted, you could come in and plat the whole thing if you wanted to, or somebody could. And so I'm concerned for the city on that one.
I know you are, and we appreciate that. I think that given the communication that we've had with the applicant, we're not. I certainly understand that concern, and if they give us a bunch of dead trees and dead vegetation, then, you know, we'll nurse it back to health, but I don't think that's the intent of what they're going for. As you can see with the video that was shown earlier, I think they're looking for an amazing product, and we got to give them a little bit of trust and let them do their job and let them install it, and there will be bonds in place for landscaping and other things that will be addressed, you know, at the appropriate times. And so I know that could be a concern, but I'm not anticipating that will be a major issue. The other thing that I wanted to point out, and it was a comment from a little bit earlier relative to that storm drain line, I think that you made a great observation, and I'm sure that they can bring an amendment, you know, for the public hearing next week that would address some of those concerns. If that's a concern of yours, I think they can probably put a line into their application and fix that so that it's not a conflict between DAP and Title 19 and what they're intending to do.
Okay. And I think that gets the gist of it. I have a lot of verbiage, but I have had some of my questions answered. So,
thank you, Commissioner Steele. You're always thorough, and we appreciate your comments. Hopefully she's provided some value to you as well. Chris Karn.
Sorry, one more question.
Time is yours.
As part of your community plan, and this may be a village plan issue, but are there any discussions with ASD on another elementary school site in this area?
We're in close contact with Rob Smith. I was drawing a blank there at ASD, and he has mentioned to us that there's no need for an elementary school site in this location. So we worked with them on the junior high school site right there at the corner, and we have worked with them on other elementary school sites located on property we control, including one that's in the works, as well as one that was built within the
Jordan Promenade's got one, right, over there?
Jordan Promenade's got one. We're working with him on that one. And so we approached him and asked him, and he said, no, we won't need one there. But likely they will to the north as we continue the project to the north.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, other comments from the Planning Commission? Do you have any other questions for staff that you'd like to ask? Any other value we can provide to you for this work session?
No, thank you very much for your comments and concerns.
Thank you. Okay, well, hopefully we provided some good value to you. Hopefully you've taken some notes, and Dave, hopefully you can take the things that we've asked you back to staff, and we'll see you again in 1 week.
1 week for a public hearing.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Item number 7, approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes of October 11th, 2018.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. I didn't think so. Okay, any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I abstained. I was not here for that meeting.
That's only 3.
That leaves us 3.
We can deal with
We'll let staff deal with that, if that's in the... Okay. Thank you. Reports of action?
3 is nothing.
There we go. Yes, we do have the one report of action because the City Center Municipal Complex Community Plan, Village Plan will be going on to City Council next Tuesday night. So we just had a few comments. Sandy, you just mentioned something about the parking lot lights. I assume that's referencing Patriot Park. Lights went on and your term of striking, I've included that in here. Was that striking when they were off or on? Okay, all right. And then Commissioner Karn, you had a question about the city, the property north of Patriot Park, if the city owns that yet. That was clarified that that's in the future plan for the city to purchase that. And you had a question about if it would include 11 soccer fields, and you see that as the future home of Splash. And that was the only comments raised by staff concerning that plan.
Thank you. Commission comments. Oh, that's you. Commissioner Steele.
I know I talked with you about the parking lot lights at Mod Pizza. I came by tonight and they're not on.
Just leave these all on. We're going to leave these all on.
There we go. I did email Scott Verheeren from the Boyer Company and told him that. He said they're going to look into that. In fact, if you want to hold on a minute, I still have his email. I will pull up what he had responded with. If you want to talk about something else, I'll bring this up.
Do you want to approve the report of action?
We can.
We don't see it. It hadn't been.
I've got it printed out here, and I've sent it over there. So
We'd have to have a motion for that as well, right? Okay. No, I'll entertain a motion for the report of action. Do we need to see it first?
We need to see it first.
Okay. Are you going to type that up?
yeah, I've already typed up. It's already sent over to the printer, so I'll go grab that. But just to go back to Commissioner Steele's concern, yeah, I emailed Scott. He emailed me back on Wednesday. He said the parking lot lights should be working this evening. Our contractor believes the problem is with the faulty photo cell and is planning on replacing it today.
Okay. I don't think they did, but.
Okay. I will go home that way tonight and see if those lights are on.
They weren't on when we came in.
Okay. I will drive by and see if they're on.
Okay. Director's report.
Just a brief update. We did lose one of our planners, Jenna. As you recall, if you knew, she took a job in New York, back home. And so we're actively recruiting now to either fill a planner 1, planner 2, or a senior planner. So we do have some applications that have come in already. And so we're vetting those applications. And when the time is right, we'll interview probably 3 people and see what we can come up with and try and fill that position.
Okay, so we'll keep this open. We'll take a brief recess, so we'll wait for our reports of action.
I believe Gordon could do a stand-up comedy routine.
I prefer to say.
So one of the things that we're doing is we're going to,
Off, by the way.
that's fine, we're going to program a button that allows you to hit all on so that you can do that. That was one of the things that we'd identified. We're also going to have a different configuration for when it's court, when it's council, and when it's planning commission. So we're still.
I've already delegated use to that. The vice
Yeah,
chair.
I saw that, so.
It's a little nerve-wracking to run a meeting and to run this at the same time.
We gave the mayor exactly what he's asked for.
Okay, he gets it.
I'm just concerned that Stan is harassing some residents.
That's right.
They're guests.
Oh, they're guests, okay.
We
They
may,
should be harassing Stan.
They're Duck fans. What do you expect?
okay, we're back on. Audio's back on. Okay, time goes back to our director, Stroud. We have
Is the recording back on?
it is, and the YouTube has always been on. This is a Planning Commission report of action dated November 8th, 2018. I will entertain a motion. Well, you want to go through it, Dave?
I hit the points that the Planning Commission made. That's probably what we need to make sure that
I'll review it then.
that was written correctly. And
I'll just put this in the record. It's item number 5. Kirk Wilkins was the chair. Action of Planning Commission was the following action was taken by the Planning Commission on the above described item. Positive recommendation for Saratoga Springs Municipal Complex CPVP, 400 South Saratoga Road. The applicant presentation, key points addressed in the applicant presentation to the Planning Commission included the following. Mark Christensen discussed future park plans, highlighted future architecture of the buildings. Staff report to the Planning Commission provides details of the facts of the case. and the staff's analysis, conclusions, or recommendations. Key points addressed in the staff's presentation to the Planning Commission included the following. See staff report. Concerns raised by the public. None. Planning Commission discussion. Sandy, parking lot lights went off last night, striking. Chris, city does not own property north of Patriot Park, question mark. Will include 11 soccer fields, question mark. Future home of Splash. And then there was a motion. No, I'm good. There was a vote. Everyone was in the affirmative. I will entertain a motion to accept the report of action. Well, it says he did right there, but we'll find out right now if that's true. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the director's report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
There you go. And I'll sign that. And without objection, we adjourn.
Mark, I have been asked about the possibility of getting some tennis courts that can be used other than the ones that are